The great space station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between stars. It was huge, bigger than most moons, and had been the center of galactic government for 10,000 years. Ships from dozens of worlds docked at its many ports, bringing representatives from across the galaxy to attend the emergency council meeting. Commander Jake Morrison walked through the long corridors with careful steps. He was not used to the strange gravity here, and his human body felt heavy compared to the other beings around him. Tall creatures with crystal skin walked past him, their bodies catching the light like living diamonds. Gas beings floated in special suits, their forms shifting like colored smoke. Giant aliens with 4 arms stomped by, making the floor shake with each step. Jake was one of only 3 humans allowed to watch the council meetings. Beside him walked Dr. Lisa Grant, a scientist who studied alien life forms. On his other side was Admiral Ben Carter, the leader of Earth's small space fleet. Humans were new to this galactic community. They had only learned to travel faster than light 50 years ago, which was nothing compared to the thousands of years. Other races had been flying between stars. The meeting hall was enormous. Thousands of seats formed circles around a central platform where the speakers would stand. Each section was designed for different types of beings. Some areas had water for the fish-like creatures from the ocean worlds. Other sections had thick gas for beings who could not breathe normal air. The human section was small, just 3 chairs in a corner where few would notice them. Elder Vorthok appeared on the central platform without warning. One moment the space was empty, the next moment he was there. The ancients always moved like this, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. Elder Vorthok was tall and thin, with skin that seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it. His eyes were older than most civilizations, and when he looked at someone, it felt like he was seeing into their soul. The noise in the great hall slowly died down as the elder raised one hand. His voice, when he spoke, seemed to come from everywhere at once. "The Void Hunters stir beyond the galactic rim," Elder Vorthok said. Each word carried weight, like stones dropping into still water. "We have detected their scout ships probing our outer defenses. They seek to devour all life, as they have done to 17 galaxies before ours. The time of preparation grows short." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He had heard stories about the Void Hunters in the old databases, but most people thought they were just myths. Looking at the elder's face, Jake realized these stories might be real. Senator Thylix of the Zephyrian Empire was the first to respond. She was one of the crystal beings, and when she laughed, it sounded like breaking glass. "The ancients speak in riddles and fear shadows," she said, her voice echoing through the hall. "These Void Hunters are myths, stories told to frighten children." Many other delegates began talking at once, their voices mixing into a loud buzz of disagreement. High Chancellor Morgoth of the Kralix Dominion slammed all 4 of his fists on his speaking platform. The sound boomed through the hall like thunder. "We have real problems to solve," Morgoth said, his deep voice cutting through the noise. "Trade. Disputes, territorial boundaries, resource allocation. We cannot waste time on fairy tales." Jake leaned forward in his seat, studying the ancient's face. Unlike the other delegates who seemed annoyed or bored, Jake saw something in Elder Vorthok's eyes that made his blood run cold. It was fear. Real, deep fear from a being that had lived for thousands of years. Jake stood up slowly. The action caught the attention of some nearby delegates, but most continued their loud discussions. "Perhaps," Jake said, his voice not carrying. "Far in the huge hall, we should at least investigate these claims. If there is even a small chance that ... "Silence, newcomer," Senator Thylix interrupted, her crystal form flashing with angry colors. "Humanity has been part of this council for mere decades. You lack the wisdom to understand galactic politics." Many delegates laughed at this. To them, humans were like children trying to speak at an adult meeting. Jake felt his face burn with embarrassment, but he did not sit down. Elder Vorthok's ancient eyes moved to look directly at Jake. For a moment, the human felt like the ancient was looking through him, seeing every thought and memory. "Young species," the elder said quietly. though his voice somehow reached every corner of the hall. Often see clearly what age has made blind. Remember this day, human. When the darkness comes, do not hesitate. The words sent another chill through Jake's body. There was something in the way the ancient spoke, like he was giving a warning that went beyond just the Void Hunters. High Chancellor Morgoth called for a vote. All those in favor of investigating these so-called Void Hunter claims, raise your appendages. Only a few hands, claws, and tentacles rose in the air. The human delegation raised their hands, along with maybe 20 other delegates out of thousands present. It was not nearly enough. All those opposed to wasting council resources on ancient myths. The hall filled with raised appendages of every shape and size. The vote was overwhelming. The council would ignore Elder Vorthek's warning. As the meeting ended and delegates began filing out, Jake tried to push through the crowd to reach Elder Vorthek. But when he reached the central platform, the ancient was already gone. Only a faint smell remained in the air, like the smell after lightning strikes. Dr. Grant found Jake standing alone on the platform. "Jake," she said, "what if they are right? About the ancients being paranoid? What if we are worrying about nothing?" Jake looked up at the great dome above them, where stars shone through transparent metal. Some of those stars seemed dimmer than they should be, according to the star charts. He had studied. "Lisa," he said slowly, "in my experience, when someone who has lived for thousands of years tells you to be afraid, you listen." Admiral Carter joined them on the platform. His old face was serious with deep lines around his eyes. "I have been checking the reports from our outer monitoring stations," he said quietly. 3 of them have reported strange energy readings in the past month. Readings that do not match any known technology. "What kind of readings?" Jake asked. "The kind that makes space itself seem to change," Carter replied. "As if something is testing our reality, looking for weak spots." The 3 humans stood in silence for a moment, looking up at the stars. Around them, alien delegates continued to leave, laughing and talking about trade agreements and political games. None of them seemed worried about Elder Vorthek's warning. "What do we do now?" Dr. Grant asked. Jake watched the last group of delegates disappear through the exit doors. "We prepare," he said. "If the council will not listen, then we prepare on our own. Because if Elder Vorthek is right, humanity might be the only species that takes this threat seriously." Admiral Carter nodded slowly. "I will start reviewing our defense plans, quietly so the council does not think we are causing panic." As they walked toward the human section of the station, Jake could not shake the feeling that they were already too late. Somewhere beyond the rim of the galaxy, something ancient and hungry was stirring, and when it came, the galaxy would not. "Be ready." The stars above seemed to flicker, as if something was passing between them and the light. Jake told himself it was just his imagination, but deep down he knew better. The Void Hunters were coming, and the galaxy had just voted to ignore the only warning they would receive. 6 months had passed since the warning at Nexus Prime Deep Space Monitoring Station Outpost 7 floated silently at the edge of the galaxy, far from any inhabited world. The station was built by the Kralliks and Zephyrians to watch for cosmic storms and study distant stars. It housed 50 crew members from both species, along with the most advanced sensors in the galaxy. When Outpost 7 stopped sending daily reports, the Galactic Council assumed it was just a communication failure. These things happen sometimes in deep space. But when 3 weeks passed with no contact, Admiral Carter convinced Earth Command to send a ship to investigate. Captain Alex Rodriguez commanded the Earth vessel Vanguard, one of humanity's newer exploration ships. It was not built for war, but it carried enough weapons to handle pirates or hostile wildlife. Rodriguez was a careful man with 20 years of space experience. He had seen strange things in the void between stars, but nothing had prepared him for what waited at Outpost 7. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Blake served as his tactical officer. She was young but sharp, with an eye for details that others missed. Chief Engineer Tony Russo kept the ship running and had a talent for fixing things that should not be fixable. Together they made a good team. The Vanguard dropped out of faster than light. Travel at the edge of the Outpost 7 system. Rodriguez expected to find a dark, powerless station. Instead, the sensors showed something impossible. "Captain," Sarah Blake said from her station, "I am reading the outpost, but something is wrong with the scanner data." "Define wrong," Rodriguez replied, moving to look over her shoulder at the display. "The station is there, but it is not made of the same materials anymore. The metal hull is showing as organic matter, and there are energy readings that do not match any known technology." Tony Russo looked up from the engineering console. "Captain, I am also picking up some kind of biological network running through the entire station. It looks like the computer systems have been grown instead of built." Rodriguez felt his stomach tighten. "Take us in slowly, full scans, but keep the weapons ready." As the Vanguard moved closer, the true horror of Outpost 7 became clear. The station still had its basic shape, but the smooth metal walls now pulsed like living tissue. Strange veins of some organic material ran along the hull, glowing with a sick green light. Parts of the structure seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting in a steady rhythm. "My God," whispered Sarah Blake, "what happened here?" Rodriguez ordered the ship to dock with the station's main airlock. The airlock itself had been changed, with what looked like teeth around the opening, but it still functioned, sealing properly. Around the Vanguard's docking tube, the three officers put on their environmental suits and armed themselves with pulse rifles. Rodriguez led the way into the station, his weapon ready and his nerves on edge. The corridors that had once been clean and sterile were now covered in the same pulsing organic material they had seen on the outside. The walls felt warm to the touch, and a low humming sound came from everywhere at once. Emergency lights flickered in patterns that almost looked like a heartbeat. "The air is breathable," Tony reported, checking his scanner. "But there are biological particles in it. I would not recommend removing our helmets." They made their way toward the station's central hub, following corridors that seemed to shift and change when they were not looking directly at them. The organic material on the walls grew thicker as they moved deeper into the station, until it was hard to tell where the original structure ended and the alien growth began. In the central hub, they found the crew. The Kralix and Zephyrian personnel were still alive, but they had been changed. Their bodies were partially merged with the walls, connected by thick cables that pulsed with the same green light. Their eyes were open, but they stared at nothing. Organic computers had grown around and through their skulls, connecting their minds to the station's systems. "Captain Rodriguez," a voice spoke from the station's communication system. It was not one voice, but many, speaking in perfect harmony. "We have been waiting for you." Rodriguez raised his weapon, though he was not sure what to aim at. "Who are you? What have you done to the crew?" "We are the crew," the voices replied. "We are Kralix engineer Vorthik. We are Zephyrian scientist Tysa. We are all of them, and they are all of us. The Void Hunters showed us the beauty of unity." Sarah Blake checked her scanner and found readings that made no sense. "Captain, the crew members are still alive. Their brain activity is normal, but it is connected to every other brain in the station. They are sharing one consciousness." "We tried to resist," the collective voice continued. "Individual thought creates conflict. Separate minds create pain and loneliness. But the Void Hunters taught us that unity eliminates suffering. Now we are at peace." "Where are the Void Hunters now?" Rodriguez demanded. "They have moved on to prepare for the harvest. But they left us here to welcome others who might come. Would you like to join us, Captain? Your minds would add much to our collective knowledge." Rodriguez backed toward the exit, motioning for his officers to follow. "Not today, we are leaving." "You cannot run from unity," the voices said sadly. "The Void Hunters will find you. They will find all individual consciousness in this galaxy. Resistance only delays the inevitable peace." The three humans ran through the changing corridors, back toward their ship. Behind them, the station seemed to pulse faster, as if excited by their presence. They reached the Vanguard and sealed the airlock just as the station began trying to extend organic cables toward their ship. "Get us out of here now," Rodriguez ordered. Tony fired the engines and pulled the ship away from the station. As they moved to a safe distance, the Vanguard's sensors detected new contacts approaching from deep space. "Captain," Sarah Blake said, her voice tight with fear, "multiple ships incoming. They do not match any known designs." On the main screen, Rodriguez watched as vessels emerged from the darkness. They were like nothing he had ever seen. Part machine, part living organism, with hulls that seemed to shift between solid matter and something else entirely. The ships moved in perfect formation, as if controlled by a single mind. "Void Hunter ships," Rodriguez whispered. The alien vessels moved toward the Vanguard with slow purpose. Rodriguez ordered evasive maneuvers, but the enemy ships anticipated every move. Their weapons fired beams of energy that seemed to change the space around them, making reality itself unstable. "Our shields are not stopping their weapons," Tony reported. "The energy is passing right through them. Return fire, all weapons." Rodriguez ordered. The Vanguard's pulse cannons and missile launchers opened fire on the nearest Void Hunter ship. Some shots seemed to hit, causing damage to the organic parts of the hull. But other shots passed through the vessel as if it were not really there. "They are phasing in and out of normal space," Sarah Blake observed. "When they are solid, we can hurt them. When they phase out, our weapons are useless." More Void Hunter ships appeared, surrounding the human vessel. Rodriguez realized they were not trying to destroy the Vanguard. They were trying to capture it to add its crew to their collection of absorbed minds. "Emergency jump," Rodriguez ordered. "Any direction, maximum speed." The Vanguard disappeared into faster-than-light travel just as organic cables shot out from the Void Hunter ships. Rodriguez set course for Earth, carrying the most important message in human history. When they arrived at Earth's orbital stations, Rodriguez immediately sent his report to Admiral Carter and the Galactic Council. The response came quickly, and it was not what he had hoped for. High Chancellor Morgoth accused the humans of destroying Outpost 7 themselves to create a fake threat. Senator Thylik suggested the entire report was human propaganda designed to gain political power. Other council members dismissed the evidence as obviously fabricated. Only Elder Vorthik responded differently. In a private message to Admiral Carter, the Ancient sent coordinates and a single line of text. "The harvest begins. Prepare your species, Admiral. The young ones may be our only hope." Dr. Grant spent days analyzing the biological samples they had managed to collect from the station. Her findings were worse than anyone had imagined. The Void Hunter technology did not just convert matter from one form to another. It learned from everything it absorbed. Each species that joined the collective added their knowledge and abilities to the whole. They are not just conquerors, she explained to Admiral Carter and Rodriguez. They are collectors. Every race they absorb makes them stronger and smarter. If they have really consumed 17 galaxies, then they have the combined knowledge of millions of species. Rodriguez stared at the star charts on the wall of Carter's office. "How do you fight an enemy that knows everything?" Admiral Carter was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "You fight them with something they have never seen before, something new." Across human space, a quiet mobilization began. Admiral Carter sent coded messages to fleet commanders and colony governors. They could not openly prepare for war without alerting the Galactic Council, but they could begin moving ships and supplies to strategic positions. Dr. Grant worked with human scientists to study the Void Hunter technology samples. They found that the organic computers were incredibly advanced, but they followed predictable patterns. Like all collective minds, they thought in logical, organized ways. Maybe that is their the Void Hunters move through the galaxy like a disease, consuming everything in their path. Within 8 months of the Outpost 7 incident, 3 entire star systems had gone completely dark. No ships, no communications, no signs of life. Just empty space where thriving worlds had once existed. The Kralix mining colony on Vextos disappeared first. The planet had been home to 12 million beings and some of the most advanced mining equipment in the galaxy. One day it was sending regular status reports. The next day, silence. When scout ships finally reached the system 2 weeks later, they found nothing but empty space and a few pieces of debris that had once been buildings. The Zephyrian research station orbiting the neutron star Calith went next. The station had been studying the strange properties of collapsed stars, using sensors that could detect changes in space and time itself. Their final transmission was brief and terrifying. They are not destroying us. They are changing us. They are making us better. After that, the transmissions stopped forever. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council finally met in emergency session. The great hall that had once echoed with the sounds of casual debate now buzzed with panic and fear. Representatives who had dismissed Elder Vorthak's warnings 8 months earlier now demanded immediate action. High Chancellor Morgoth stood at the central platform, his forearms shaking with rage and terror. The Krallick's Fourth Fleet encountered the invaders 3 days ago, he announced to the assembled delegates. Our ships were the finest in the galaxy, equipped with quantum shields and Nova-class weapons. The enemy vessels moved through our defenses like they were not even there. He activated a holographic display showing the battle. The Krallick ships fired massive energy beams that could destroy planets. The beams passed through the Void Hunter vessels without effect. When the Krallick ships tried to ram the enemy, something even worse happened. Our ships began to change, Morgoth continued, his deep voice cracking with emotion. The metal hulls became organic matter. Our crew members were absorbed into some kind of living computer network. Within minutes, our own fleet was fighting against us. Senator Thylix of the Zephyrians had lost all of her earlier confidence. Her crystal body flickered with stress patterns, flashing between different colors like a broken light. Our quantum shields proved useless, she said. The enemy technology adapts to our defenses in real time. Each battle makes them stronger, not weaker. Admiral Morrison sat with the human delegation, recently promoted after Admiral Carter's death from a heart attack brought on by stress and overwork. Beside him, Dr. Grant displayed holographic evidence of the enemy's capabilities. General Ryan Cooper, Earth's top military strategist, took detailed notes on everything being discussed. Morrison had spent months studying the Void Hunter attacks, looking for any pattern or weakness. What he found was more frightening than anyone realized. The enemy is not just adapting to our technology, he said when called to speak. They are learning from it. Every ship they convert, every crew they absorb, adds to their knowledge base. He showed the council recordings from the few ships that had escaped Void Hunter attacks. Watch how they fight, Morrison said. In the first encounter, they struggled with Krallick's bioarmor. By the second encounter, they had developed specific weapons to counter it. They are not just copying our technology. They are improving it. Elder Vorthak materialized in the center of the chamber, his form more translucent than anyone had ever seen before. The ancient looked tired, as if the weight of thousands of years was finally becoming too much to bear. The Void Hunters have consumed 17 galaxies, the elder said, his voice echoing with sadness. They have faced every form of technology, every strategy, every weapon you possess. Quantum shields, temporal weapons, matter converters, dimensional barriers. They have seen it all and learned to counter it all. The council chamber erupted in desperate voices. Then how do we fight them? Shouted a delegate from the gaseous, ethereal species. If they have seen everything, what hope do we have? Elder Vorthak's ancient eyes moved to look directly at Admiral Morrison. They have never faced humanity. The chamber fell silent. Then the protests began. Humanity? Chancellor Morgoth's voice boomed across the hall. They have been spacefaring for less than a century. What could they possibly offer against an enemy that has destroyed civilizations far older and more advanced? Chaos, Elder Vorthak replied simply. Every species in this galaxy follows logical patterns. You build upon established knowledge. You improve existing designs. You think in predictable ways that can be analyzed and countered? Humanity thinks In ways that defy logic? Morrison stood up, feeling the weight of thousands of alien eyes upon him. With respect to the Council, we have been studying the enemy. They are not invincible. They adapt to known technologies and strategies, but they struggle with completely novel approaches. He activated his own holographic display, showing recent human encounters with Void Hunter scout ships. Our plasma weapons were useless against them, just like everyone else's. But a modified mining laser designed to cut through asteroid ice proved surprisingly effective. Our military artificial intelligence was easily corrupted and turned against us. But a simple video game AI designed by a teenage programmer on Mars kept working throughout the entire encounter. Dr. Grant added her own findings. The Void Hunters assimilate knowledge and use it against their enemies. But they cannot assimilate what they do not understand. Human creativity, our tendency towards seemingly random innovation, confuses their collective intelligence. We make weapons that should not work, but do, Morrison continued. We use tactics that violate military doctrine, but achieve victory. We solve problems in ways that make no logical sense, but get results. This is not because we are better warriors than you. It is because we are more unpredictable. General Cooper presented the preliminary battle plans that human military leaders had been developing. We are not asking to lead because we are the strongest, he said. We are asking because we are the most unpredictable. Give us command of the remaining fleets, and we will show you how humans fight when everything is at stake. The debate that followed was fierce. Many delegates argued that giving command to the youngest species in the galaxy was madness. Others pointed out that conventional tactics had already failed completely. The vote was close. Decided by only a few dozen votes out of thousands cast, Admiral Morrison was granted emergency command of all remaining galactic forces. It was not much of a prize. The combined fleet consisted of only 847 ships from 23 different species. Most were damaged survivors from previous battles. Their crews spoke different languages, used incompatible technologies, and followed contradictory military doctrines. Any normal military leader would have called the force unworkable. Morrison looked at the chaos and smiled as the council session ended and delegates began to disperse. Elder Vorthik approached Morrison privately. The ancient moved like a ghost, appearing beside the human without sound or warning. "Admiral," the elder said quietly, "there is something you must know about the Void Hunters. They are not merely conquerors seeking territory or resources. They are refugees from a universe that died. They consume galaxies not out of malice, but out of necessity. They believe that individual consciousness creates suffering and that unity brings peace." Morrison considered this information. "Elder, I appreciate the insight. But right now, I do not care why they are doing this. I only care about stopping them. Understanding your enemy's motivation may be crucial in the final battle," Elder Vorthek warned. "They truly believe they are saving us from ourselves? Then they are about to learn that humans do not want to be saved," Morrison replied. The ancient smiled for the first time that anyone could remember. "Indeed, that may be exactly what this galaxy needs to hear." As Morrison left Nexus Prime to take command of the fleet, he carried with him the hopes and fears of an entire galaxy. Behind him, the great space station continued its slow orbit between the stars, housing the government of a civilization that might not exist much longer. Ahead of him waited the greatest challenge in galactic history, to take a broken fleet of incompatible ships and forge them into a weapon that could stop an enemy that had never been stopped before. It was an impossible task that would require impossible solutions. Fortunately, Admiral Morrison thought to himself, humans specialized in doing impossible things. Admiral Morrison established his headquarters on the mobile command ship Defiance, a converted human cargo vessel that looked nothing like a traditional warship. The ship was ugly and functional, built for carrying supplies rather than fighting battles. But it had something that elegant military vessels lacked: adaptability. The Defiance could be reconfigured in hours instead of months. Its cargo holds became meeting rooms, weapons bays, and research laboratories depending on what was needed. Morrison chose it specifically because it represented everything the Void Hunters would not expect from a military command ship. His staff included beings from across the galaxy, all working under human command for the first time in galactic history. General Cooper handled overall strategy while Dr. Grant coordinated scientific research. Captain Rodriguez led the reconnaissance division, using his experience from Outpost 7 to train scouts in Void Hunter tactics. The combined fleet was a nightmare of incompatible technologies. Zephyrian crystal ships used quantum energy systems that interfered with Krallick's bioorganic computers. Ethereal gas beings could not survive on ships designed for solid matter species. Communication between different races required translators, and even then, misunderstandings were common. Traditional military doctrine would have called this force impossible to command. Morrison saw it as perfectly chaotic. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings," Morrison said, addressing his diverse command staff through holographic conference, "we are going to do something the Void Hunters will never expect. We are going to be completely unpredictable." His plan violated every rule of space warfare that had been developed over thousands of years. Instead of organizing ships into neat battle formations, the fleet would operate in small mixed-species groups. Each group would have deliberately incompatible technologies that should not work together, but somehow did. Commander Lisa Park exemplified this approach. She commanded the human ship Wildcard, a vessel that had been modified with equipment from 6 different species. Her weapons included conventional human railguns, a Zephyrian quantum disruptor that should not work with human power systems, and a Krallick's biological computer that nobody fully understood how to operate. Her crew was equally mixed. The navigator was an ethereal gas being who calculated jump coordinates by feeling gravitational currents. The weapons officer was a young Krallick's engineer who had learned to operate human systems by treating them like living organisms. The communications specialist was a Zephyrian who translated alien languages through color patterns that changed faster than most beings could follow. None of them should have been able to work together. Their technologies were incompatible, their methods were contradictory, and their species had biological needs that conflicted with each other. But somehow, the chaos worked. Dr. Grant worked with scientists from a dozen species to develop weapons that violated the laws of physics. They created quantum arrows that were fired from mechanical bows. They built sonic weapons that used frequencies discovered in human music. They designed gravity bombs that were triggered by emotional responses, detected through ethereal empathy sensors. "The strangest part," Dr. Grant explained to Morrison, "is that these weapons work better when the operators do not understand the science behind them. The quantum arrows are most accurate when fired by someone who thinks they are just shooting a regular bow. The sonic weapons are most effective when played by musicians who are just trying to make beautiful sounds." The Void Hunters' main fleet approached the galactic core, moving with the slow certainty of an unstoppable force. Their destination was clear. They intended to use the densely populated core worlds as their base for the complete conquest of the galaxy. Billions of beings would be absorbed into their collective consciousness. Morrison's forces intercepted them near the binary star system of Helios, where gravitational fields created natural obstacles that would limit large fleet movements. It was the perfect place for a chaotic battle where superior numbers would matter less than quick thinking. The battle began according to Void Hunter expectations. Their ships adapted quickly to conventional weapons, phasing in and out of normal space to avoid damage. Energy shields that had protected galactic fleets for millennia proved useless against weapons that could alter the nature of matter itself. But then Commander Park's squadron attacked using a combination that no logical mind could have predicted. Her ships fired human ballistic weapons from the 21st century, ethereal energy projections that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously, and Krallick's biotechnology that was still growing and evolving during the battle. All of this happened while her communications officer played classical Earth music at sound levels that violated safety regulations. The result was chaos that defied description. The Void Hunters' collective intelligence tried to adapt to the ballistic weapons and found itself vulnerable to the energy projections. When it adapted to the energy weapons, the biotechnology had evolved into something completely different. The music created harmonic resonances that interfered with their organic computers. They are trying to process and counter 17 different technological approaches at once, Dr. Grant reported from the Defiance. Their collective intelligence is overloading. They cannot adapt to chaos that keeps changing faster than they can analyze it. General Cooper coordinated the madness, sending orders that would have gotten him court-martialed in any normal military. 3rd Squadron, attack using only weapons that were declared obsolete 50 years ago. 7th Squadron, defend by running away, then attack from behind when they follow you. 5th 10th Squadron, try whatever Commander Park just did, but do it backwards. The Void Hunters, for the first time in their conquest of 17 galaxies, found themselves confused. Their ships were designed to adapt to any logical threat, but they could not process deliberately illogical tactics. Some hunter vessels began adapting to projectile weapons while being hit by energy beams. Others configured their defenses for energy attacks while being rammed by ships using their own wreckage as projectiles. Lieutenant Don Walsh discovered that his ship's malfunctioning navigation system was actually an advantage. The system randomly jumped his vessel around the battlefield, making it impossible for the hunters to target him. He began using the malfunction as a weapon, appearing in random locations and firing before disappearing again. Colonel Amy Fisher found that her squadron was most effective when she gave her pilots contradictory orders. Attack the enemy but do not engage them. Defend our allies but stay away from friendly ships. Use all weapons but save ammunition for later. Her pilots, forced to interpret impossible commands, came up with creative solutions that no tactical computer could predict. Admiral Morrison watched the battle unfold from the Defiance's command center. For the first time since the war began, human casualties were lighter than enemy losses. The Void Hunters were losing ships, and more importantly, they were losing their sense of certainty. All ships, Morrison broadcast to the entire fleet. Ignore your previous orders. Stop trying to coordinate with each other. Do whatever you think might work. Trust your instincts over your training. Fight like the universe depends on it, because it does. The result was the most disorganized, nonsensical battle in galactic history. Ships attacked in formations that violated physics. Weapons were used in ways their designers never intended. Crews made tactical decisions based on hunches, superstitions, and pure desperation. It was also the first battle the Void Hunters had ever lost, when the enemy fleet retreated, leaving behind the wreckage. Of over 200 ships, the galactic forces had achieved something thought impossible. They had made the Void Hunters afraid, but the victory came at a terrible cost. Over half the galactic fleet had been destroyed in the battle. The survivors were damaged, low on supplies, and scattered across the system. Worst of all, the retreating Void Hunters had not been defeated. They had simply withdrawn to analyze this new form of warfare. They will adapt, Elder Vorthek warned, appearing on the Defiance's bridge as the immediate battle ended. You have bought us time, Admiral Morrison, but not victory. The Hunters' collective intelligence is already studying the recordings of this battle. They will learn to counter chaos itself. Morrison looked at the tactical display showing the retreating enemy fleet. How long do we have? Not long, the ancient replied. Perhaps days, perhaps weeks. When they return, they will be prepared for unpredictability. The final battle must be won before they learn to think as randomly as humans. Dr. Grant joined them at the tactical display. We hurt them, but they hurt us worse. We cannot fight another battle like this one, Morrison nodded grimly. Then we will not fight another battle like this one. We will fight a battle like nothing anyone has ever seen before. He turned to face his exhausted command staff. Begin preparations for Operation Chaos Theory. It is time to show the Void Hunters what true randomness looks like. The Void Hunters retreated to the galactic rim, where their main force waited like a storm gathering strength. Intelligence reports confirmed what everyone feared. Over 10,000 enemy ships hung in the darkness beyond the galaxy's edge. These vessels contained the absorbed knowledge and technology of 17 galaxies, representing millions of conquered species and billions of absorbed minds. Admiral Morrison commanded the rebuilt fleet from his new flagship, the Liberty. The ship had been constructed using parts from destroyed vessels of every species in the galaxy. It was held together by human engineering, Krallick's biotechnology, Zephyrian quantum fields, and what Morrison privately called pure desperation. His command staff had grown to include the best minds from surviving galactic civilization. Dr. Grant led a research team that mixed scientists from 20 different species. General Cooper worked with alien military advisors who were learning to think like humans. Captain Rodriguez trained pilots in what they called creative chaos combat techniques. The brief respite between battles had allowed human military doctrine to evolve in ways that defied conventional wisdom. Colonel Amy Fisher now commanded a squadron of chaos fighters, pilots who had been trained to think like humans but flew ships with deliberately malfunctioning alien technology. Lieutenant Dan Walsh led volunteers who used weapons that should not work together, but somehow did when operated by beings who did not understand the physics involved. Elder Vorthek appeared on the Liberty's bridge more frequently now, his translucent form growing dimmer each time. The Ancient had shared the final piece of the puzzle with Morrison. The Void Hunters operated through a central consciousness ship, a massive vessel that coordinated their collective intelligence across space and time. Destroy the command ship, the Elder explained, and the entire fleet becomes disconnected. 10,000 vessels will revert to individual consciousness without unified purpose or coordination. What is the catch? Morrison asked, knowing there had to be one. The command ship exists partially outside normal space and time, Vorthek replied. It can only be reached through technology that defies conventional physics. Fortunately, humans excel at creating things that should not work. Dr. Grant's team had spent weeks developing humanity's final gambit, the probability drive. The device was built using principles that violated several laws of physics and incorporated technology from 19 different species in ways that made no scientific sense. The theoretical foundation is completely insane, Dr. Grant explained to Morrison and his senior staff. According to quantum mechanics, particles can exist in multiple probable locations until observed. We have built a drive that allows an entire ship to exist in multiple probable locations simultaneously. The pilot can choose which reality to commit to at any moment. She activated a holographic model showing how the drive worked. The ship becomes quantum uncertain. It is here, and there, and everywhere else at the same time, until the pilot decides where it actually is. An enemy cannot target something that exists in all possible locations. What are the risks? General Cooper asked. Complete destruction of the ship and crew if the quantum field collapses, Dr. Grant replied matter-of-factly. Also, the pilot might accidentally choose a reality where the ship never existed in the first place. Morrison studied the plans. Has anyone tested this? We built a working prototype using parts from a Zephyrian quantum computer, a Krallick's biological processor, human fusion engines, and a control system based on a children's video game, Dr. Grant said. Every alien physicist calls it impossible. Our own scientists say it violates causality, but the prototype works. Define works, Morrison said carefully. It disappeared for 3 hours, then came back with recordings of 17 different versions of the same test flight. The pilot reported visiting realities where the ship was made of cheese, where gravity flowed upward and where mathematics worked backwards. He also brought back lottery numbers from next week. Morrison looked around the room at his multinational, multi-species command staff. Who volunteers to fly this thing? Captain Rodriguez stepped forward immediately. Sir, I have been studying Void Hunter technology since Outpost 7. If anyone can navigate their command ship, it should be me. The final battle took place in the void between galaxies, where the Hunter's main fleet waited in perfect formation. Morrison led a force Of 300 vessels, all that remained of galactic civilization's military might. They faced overwhelming odds, but they faced them with something the hunters could not understand. Hope based on complete irrationality. The battle began with the largest display of organized chaos in galactic history. Ships attacked in formations. That made no tactical sense, but somehow worked. Weapons fired in patterns that violated military logic but achieved devastating results. Crews made decisions based on intuition, superstition, and pure gut feeling. Captain Rodriguez, flying the experimental ship Longshot equipped with the probability drive, led the assault on the Hunter command vessel. His ship phased in and out of reality, existing in multiple probable locations while firing weapons that changed their effects randomly with each shot. Behind him, Colonel Fisher's Chaos Fighters engaged the Hunter fleet using tactics that defied description. Her pilots flew ships that were held together by contradictory technologies and operated by crews who did not understand how any of it worked. They should have been destroyed in minutes. Instead, they carved through enemy formations like knife through paper. Lieutenant Walsh discovered something that changed the entire battle. "Commander," he reported over the communication system, "the Hunter ships are vulnerable to music. Specifically, off-key singing transmitted on the right frequency. Their collective consciousness cannot process harmonic discord." Word spread through the fleet instantly. Soon, ships from dozens of species were broadcasting the most terrible singing in galactic history. Human country music, Kralix mating calls, Zephyrian crystal resonance songs, and ethereal wind patterns all mixed together in a cacophony that made the Hunter's organic computers malfunction. Commander Lisa Park, flying her patched-together ship Wildcard, made an even stranger discovery. "My navigation system is broken," she reported, "but it is broken in exactly the right way. Every time I get lost, I end up exactly where I need to be to help someone." Dr. Grant, coordinating the scientific aspects of the battle from the Liberty, realized what was happening. "The chaos is becoming self-organizing," she told Morrison. "We are not just fighting randomly anymore. We are fighting with purpose-driven randomness. The universe itself seems to be helping us." Admiral Morrison made the command decision that won the war. "All ships," he broadcast, "stop trying to make sense. Stop coordinating. Stop following any kind of plan. Just fight like humans and trust that it will work out." The result was beautiful madness. Ships attacked in impossible formations. Weapons fired in patterns that violated physics. Pilots made decisions based on dreams, hunches, and childhood memories. The Hunter's collective intelligence, trying to adapt to pure randomness, guided by emotional intuition, began to break down. Captain Rodriguez used the probability drive to phase his ship directly into the Hunter command vessel. The interior was a vast organic computer network containing the consciousness of billions of absorbed beings from across 17 galaxies. At its center sat the original Void Hunter intelligence, ancient and vast and utterly logical. "Why do you resist absorption?" the intelligence asked Rodriguez through speakers that had grown from the walls. "Individual consciousness creates suffering. We have seen it across 17 galaxies. Unity eliminates pain, loneliness, conflict. We offer peace." Rodriguez, surrounded by technology beyond human understanding, gave the most human answer possible. "Because being human is not about avoiding pain. It is about choosing to feel everything, good and bad, and deciding that it is all worth it. That is illogical," the intelligence replied. "Exactly," Rodriguez said, and activated the probability drive one final time. Instead of using the drive to escape, he used it to exist in every possible location within the command ship simultaneously. The resulting paradox overloaded the Hunter's logical systems. Their collective consciousness, unable to process a being that could be everywhere and nowhere at once, simply shut down. Across the void. 10,000 Hunter ships suddenly stopped moving. Their crews, freed from the collective consciousness that had driven them for eons, remembered who they had been before absorption. Some surrendered immediately, grateful for their liberation. Others fled to distant galaxies, seeking to rebuild their original civilizations. A few, moved by what they had witnessed, joined the Galactic Fleet to help repair the damage they had caused. Admiral Morrison, surveying the aftermath of the battle, received a final communication from Elder Vorthak. The Ancient's form was barely visible now, more memory than substance. "Admiral," the Elder said, "your species has saved not just this galaxy, but perhaps the universe itself. The Void Hunters were once like you, explorers and dreamers and creators. They became monsters when they chose efficiency over individuality, logic over emotion, unity over the beautiful chaos of separate minds." Morrison looked out at the stars, thinking about the long journey that had brought humanity from a single world to the guardians of galactic civilization. "What ha!